Hey guys, Adam from Quote Tone Door. Well, today's video is going to be about one of our favorite items, and that would be good old-fashioned paracord. But when you're buying paracord, whether you buy it in somewhat smaller sizes like this, or bigger sizes like this, the common question always asked is, how much is too much paracord, and what's a proper way to pack and travel with it to make it the most effective and efficient tool that it could possibly be? Now, everybody knows that the uses for paracord are almost limitless. It's also very light, even in large bundles such as this. Now, this is 1,000 feet, and it comes in with the spool a whopping 4 pounds. So you guys can imagine you can do a lot with paracord, and it is an essential tool for any wilderness survival type tasks or even bushcrafting. I do like natural fibers as well, but nothing beats 550 cord. So one thing about 550 cord is it's a nylon strand, and we're going to get some close-up shots right here for you guys. And I got some spools right here, and actually we have our outer nylon shell. This is an OD green, and we have our 7 inner strands. Now, the one cool thing about each of the inner strands, they're actually twisted together, and if we pull these guys apart, of course we have 2 more main strands from each of the 7, and then of course those 2 strands are actually made of, I don't know, about 40 little very, 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 very fine strands, probably more than that. I don't want to count all those, but it's very fuzzy, as you guys can see. So great stuff, but one problem is after a couple days out on the trail, or after camping, or doing some different training, you end up with a lot of different bundles of 550 cord if you're trying to save your stuff. So you got anything from something like this to something like this to unfortunately something like this. And everybody knows you have that one little piece of 550 cord, or wrapped to even something loose like this, where we're getting to be something under 6 feet long. So what's the proper size, or what's the most effective and efficient size to maximize the utility of your 550 cord? Because we all have gotten down there and we're working on something, and we cut a piece of 550 cord, and then we realize, oh, I've cut it too short, so I've wasted it. So instead of doing that, instead of throwing it away, we throw it in the bottom of our bag, and it collects dust there. And then what else starts to happen is you start to do that over and over again. Before you know it, you got a bunch of cut pieces of 550 cord where something like this was once existed. So a couple tips and tricks we're going to cover with 550 cord right now to maximize the size. So stay tuned. So of course what we have here is a tree, and I think usually the longest thing you're going to use a piece of 550 cord in is probably to run a line, to set up some kind of shelter, be it a lean-to with a tarp or anything like that. And so there's a really neat trick I want to share with you guys in regards to how to pack your 550 cord and choosing the size based on some cool properties that 550 cord has. So I got a tree right here. This is a slightly scientific, and and you need a little bit of math with this one, but this is based on the theory that I use. Now, most of the time, whenever I'm doing a lean-to or something like that, I'm looking for a few trees that are relatively close together, and that's based on my body size. So I'm 6'3", so I want to make sure that any trees, if I'm going to throw a line up, I'm be able to fit myself in between there. A good rule of thumb is you just stick your arms out straight from fingertip to fingertip, and that's the same length as your height. So I usually walk between 2 young trees. Something about this thickness is getting up there. Usually younger trees, but this is a good example based on whatever forest you are, because trees this size aren't that close together. Naturally, as a forest evolves, certain trees come in there early stage of the forest, and actually they die. Some other different species come up and take their place in reference to the cycle of the forest. But this is going to be a good example of what we're going to do. So I'm show you one really quick thing on this one, and one cool thing about 550 cord, if I have enough here for this type of tree, is if you wrap 550 cord around an object, this is not going to be enough. Okay. The friction inherent to the cordage is enough that you don't need to secure it in any other means except the wrapping it. And actually, you guys can see right there, I've just wrapped this 550 cord without a knot, without anything, just 3 times, okay? But for smaller trees, we want to use 8. And I'm going to lean back, and you guys can see that stuff is not going to budge at all, okay? So based on that, get more of a shot. Based on that, if I was injured for whatever reason, and I only had use of one of my hands. This is a really cool technique you can use to wrap the 550 cord around the tree. If you're not able to tie any knots or anything because of something come out of damage, maybe a frostbite and you can't manipulate your fingers, you lost dexterity, for whatever reason, this is a cool technique. And I use this technique and I incorporate that in how I'm going to do the size of my 550 cord. So this tree is probably about twice the thickness of any tree that, you know, I'll usually use for some kind of shelter building. So when we pull this piece of cordage back, and we got 3 wraps around, all right, so let's pull it back here. This is about this tree circumference. Got the handy tape measure. Is 4 feet, okay? So 35 feet, that ratio is about the size that you're looking at for a good rule of thumb. Most of the time, I just pack mine for 25 feet, but something larger like a couple 35-foot bundles would be great. So if you have a 100-foot hank that you just bought, you know, splitting that up into 3 equal pieces, even if you're going 33 feet, do very, very well. I try to stay away from anything under 25 feet for my lengths of paracord, because at that point you might run into a situation where it's not long enough. And this is actually a pretty cool technique, a pretty cool rule of thumb when doing your size of 550 cord. I really think cutting them down into 5-foot or 10-foot bundles can be a little too small. Better safe than sorry, I always say. Next part, we'll look at how to wrap it, the most effective and efficient way to store your 550 cord. We'll be right back. All right, guys, so we're back. So really quick, just a quick technique you can use to bundle your 550 cord. Remember rule number 1 with cordage, always know where both ends are. If you control both ends, you're not going to lose it. So what you can do is start out here, use your hand, and what I do is I just actually, we'll put that right there, just wrap around some loops around your hand. No big deal. The reason I like doing it like this, I think it makes it as compact as possible. You can also adjust the size you want it by making your hand closer together when you start locking it up. So leave about that much, 2 feet. Grab the bundle. You still know where that is. You're going to take this, pinch it off, and just start wrapping around, nice and taut. Now, you have this other end right here. What I do with that one is I'll place this, I'll get a little closer angle for you guys, so I don't really like snag points. Just start wrapping this one right here. Same tightness. And then what you can do is just take this simple bowline knot or whatever, square knot, whatever knot you want to do. Now there are hundreds of ways to do this, but it's easy. You got one simple knot right there to unloop and to pull everything. It's nice and compact. There's not much snag points. Throw a carabiner through this to upload a couple different links. So that's pretty much it, guys. And we'll put that one back in our rope container. Well, hey guys, it's Adam from Equipped to Endure. If you guys have any questions or comments, please email me at adam@equippedtoendure.com. Make sure to check out the website at www.equippedtoendure.com. You guys take care, be safe out there, and remember, if you're not always prepared, you're never prepared. Thanks.